At Third Space Charity, we support a mentally resilient community by offering accessible counseling care to young adults between the ages of 18 and 29. This is Mental Health Matters, where we discuss topics and services related to mental health and wellness in our community.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mental Health Matters. My guest today is a repeat guest. She's back for part 2 on intuitive eating. Welcome, Sandra Thies.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Sandra. I am a registered dietitian here in Kelowna and a certified intuitive eating counselor and body image coach. So thank you so much for having me again for round 2.
Yes, we had a lot of feedback after the first one. If you haven't watched the first episode, the January episode of Mental Health Matters is Sandra talking about toxic diet culture. Today we wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of intuitive eating and how to go about eating intuitively. People wanted the goods. They wanted to know, what are the first 3 steps? How do I do this? Yeah. So I thought, well, let's do it. Let's get into, maybe just do a quick recap on intuitive eating for those who haven't seen part 1.
Absolutely, and I don't blame them. Intuitive eating is a big topic, and it was very hard to condense our conversation last time into just the time that we had. So I'm really happy to be back today talking a little bit more about the details about intuitive eating and actually how you can start to practice the principles that are in the whole intuitive eating framework. So a bit of a recap on exactly what intuitive eating is. It is reconnecting with your body in a very basic nutshell. It is learning how to listen to your body's internal signals instead of paying attention to the external diet culture-y things that we tend to listen to make decisions about our body, about what we eat, about when we eat, about just all of those decisions around food. It encompasses taking a deep dive into diet culture in an individual's life, where it shows up, where people may have developed these beliefs and these learned behaviors that stem from diet culture, taking a look at how we can start to turn down the volume on diet culture in people's lives. And then looking at how do we relearn to listen to our own body and then trust those signals to help make decisions on, oh, I'm feeling hungry now. I feel like eating such and such. So I'm gonna go and honor that decision rather than listening to the diet culture voice, which says, oh, well, it's 10:15 in the morning. You just ate an hour and a half ago. You shouldn't be hungry now. Let's hold it off until lunchtime. So it's very much a journey of reconnecting to your body, learning how to listen to your body, and learning how to make choices that align with how you feel and how you want to feel. So there's some body trust that comes in, there's some body autonomy that comes into play there, and then all of the nuance surrounding food and the self-talk that we have around food.
So good. Yeah, I mean, it's probably hard to put it into 1 or 2 sentences, but it completely makes sense. I think a lot of us are up here most of the day. I know for myself, I do that too. And so if we were on the fence about trying this, what are some of the benefits of eating intuitively?
So I think I want to kind of take it back one step even to when I see people coming into my door, like when they're like, okay, this is something that I want to try. And oftentimes it's people that have been on and off diets for years, if not their entire life. Perhaps they started being on a diet or on Weight Watchers, or their parents put them on something when they were young, when they were a child in elementary school. And they've struggled with their relationship with food, with fixating on food, with trying to eat clean, eat healthy, trying this diet, trying that eating plan. Nowadays, it's more lifestyle change. We see, I'm doing this for my lifestyle, I'm changing my habits, I'm doing this for my health. And there comes a time when you just realize that's not working. It hasn't worked this whole time. It hasn't left people with lasting, sustainable change. And that is where intuitive eating comes in really nicely. It is a practice that is really lifelong. It's not just something where you can tick the boxes and say, okay, I've done these couple of things, now I'm fine. Check box, I'm done. It's very much not a diet in that sense where it's quick and easy. It takes work. It takes digging into where did we develop these diet culture beliefs from? Where did we learn them? How do they come up in our daily life? And how can we start to tune them out? So I think to summarize some of the benefits of intuitive eating, it really helps foster a trusting relationship with your body and allows you to, I feel like I'm going back to what I said at the beginning about listening to your body and honoring what your needs are. The only person, and I say this frequently in my one-on-one sessions with clients, the only person that knows what you need is you. Mm-hmm. And our bodies send us signals and cues and messages every single day to let us know what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what do we need, what do we not need. And it can be really, really powerful to learn how to listen to those cues and then make decisions based on them. So there are benefits in terms of being able to trust your body. There are benefits in the body image area of building self-confidence, having positive and more neutral self-talk. There is, and that plays into the body autonomy piece of feeling like you are in control of your own body and you are allowed to make decisions that feel good to you, not that are based on what somebody else is dictating or judging.
It sounds like that can kind of ripple into other areas of your life too, not just eating.
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of the time, the conversation starts around the food, and then it transitions into conversations around body image. And then we talk about, what does health mean to you? Where do you actually want to get to? What do you value? So I do a lot of values work with my clients. It then goes into the self-talk piece. So it's more than just looking at what you're putting on your plate and how we can eat or build a balanced diet that works for you. It encompasses the food conversation, the body image conversation. It encompasses the self-talk pieces, pieces on values work, on what health actually means, where you want to get to, and ultimately you develop a sense of, I'm allowed to be at home in my body. I'm allowed to feel comfortable and trust what my body is saying. And something that I like to bring up when I talk about this too is intuitive eating work isn't short. It's not quick. We have to look at how many years you've spent on and off diets, how many years someone has spent fixated on what to eat, what not to eat, what's good or bad or healthy or clean, or what their weight is, or the fixation on the number on the scale. And I say, look at how many years you've spent doing that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to forget it all and overcome it in a couple of months or a couple of weeks. I've been on my own intuitive eating and body image journey for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm still learning. I'm still discovering. And a mentor actually once said to me, it's like a dig, an archaeological dig. You are starting at the surface. You're not really sure what you're going to find under the ground, so you start digging. And you find something here. So you take it out and you look at it, you examine it, and then you put it to the side and you keep digging. And in that sense, it's very much of an ongoing process. And so
there are no quick fixes.
No quick fixes.
No quick fixes. And that's what diet culture tries to sell you.
Yeah, very much. And I would say a question that I'd pose to the audience here is, how many years and how much longer do you want to spend fighting against your body? You only have one. Mm-hmm. How can you learn to live with it?
And so how can we do that? So if you were to give us, let's say three broken down steps, if we wanted to start eating intuitively, what would we do? So
the beginning is to really the start of this work is really to bring awareness to where diet culture is in your life and the self-talk that you hold around foods and diet culture. So something that I like to start off with is a social media purge. Let's look at your Instagram feed, your Facebook feed, your TikTok feed, and are there before and after pictures coming up? Are there posts that people are, putting out the what I eat in a day videos? Are there posts talking about demonizing certain foods, or how you shouldn't eat these foods and you should eat these foods? Or perhaps there's books or TV shows that have fat phobia, or very weight-centric terminology. An easy way to kind of dictate or decipher, is this diet culture, or is this something that I should or shouldn't be paying attention to, is pay attention to how it makes you feel about yourself. If it leaves you feeling like you are unworthy, like you are less than, like you need to change, like you shouldn't be the way that you are, or guilty or shameful, it's probably worth getting rid of in your feed. The more often that we are paying attention to and consuming this kind of content, the more likely we're going to feel guilty and shameful about our choices, about our body, about, really the way that we live. And so that's kind of the first piece, is the awareness of it.
So social media purge.
Yes.
Okay, step one.
Yeah, step one, social media purge, kind of really knowing where diet culture is at its highest in your life. And then
what if it's your people in the relationship? What if it's like your parents or your friends? What then?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because the beliefs that we can hold about our bodies and our eating habits, it's very common that we can get them from our parents. As children, we take the information that they share at face value. Or the way that someone's mom would look at themselves in the mirror, or say that they shouldn't eat those carbohydrates, or that they're too big. A little girl will take that at face value and believe that. And so when and if you identify that it is your family or friends or relationships, or maybe it's conversations between your coworkers at work, that you're really getting the most of that kind of diet culture-y messages from, I think the best advice that I can give there is to recognize what is true for you, and start to kind of evaluate, okay, there's this belief in my family or at work or in my friends. Does this hold truth for me? And is this impactful for me to kind of listen to and believe and consume, really? And so I kind of have, if we want to take it one more step further, 3 steps. Interesting that we're chatting about this now because the holidays just happened.
Yes.
And that's a big source of diet culture messages, chatter at the dinner table. And so there's 3 kind of ways that you can go about it. You can distract yourself and say, okay, I'm going to just tune out of that conversation. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to talk to somebody else, or pay attention to what I'm eating, or, just some kind of distraction tendencies so that you can tune out of that conversation. The second way is to actually remove yourself from that area. So if you know that the conversation is not serving you, if it's starting to cause some anxiety, if it's starting to make you feel bad about your choices and like you shouldn't eat anymore because they're talking about the number of calories in the Christmas cake or whatever, just leave the room. Separate yourself from that conversation. You don't need to be a part of it. And then the third one, which is my favorite one to work on with clients, is to stand up for yourself here. You're allowed to say, look, I don't want to talk about the calorie count of these foods at the dinner table. You're allowed to set a boundary with your friends and family about what kind of conversations you want to or don't want to have at the dinner table. It is your right to let them know that you are making decisions that feel good for you, and you don't want to be a part of that conversation. And that's okay to do. Mm-hmm. It can be really hard though.
Yeah.
So, which is why I give the other options as well.
Okay, so summarize step 2 again.
Well, yeah, I feel like that was kind of a combo of step 1 and step 2.
Yeah.
Recognize where diet culture is in your life, where
Recognize
it's coming
where it
from.
is. Yep.
And do what you can to separate from it or tune out from it. Kind of turn down the volume or
take action on trying to remove some of it from your life.
Yeah, kind of placing less value on those messages and recognizing that when they do come up, they don't need to mean so much. They don't need to hold so much weight in your life.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we on to step 3?
Yep.
So this takes kind of a different angle within the intuitive eating approach. Kind of what we were talking about was really around the diet culture piece. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to look at, okay, how can we start to listen to our body? So this can be really fun work. It can also take a lot of time and a lot of practice. When someone is very entrenched in diet culture, spent 10, 20 plus years on and off of diets, they have learned not to listen to their body's signals. So we're going to talk about hunger and fullness here a little bit more. Now, a tool that I give to all of my clients, and really that everyone uses in the intuitive eating world, is the hunger and fullness scale. So if you just search up on Google, intuitive eating, hunger and fullness scale, you should be able to find, there's various renditions of it, but very similar. It's a scale from 0 to 10. 0 being super, super, super hungry. You could literally eat anything. 10 being, I just had 4 Thanksgiving dinners, really, really overfull, painful. So the purpose of using this scale, excuse me, is to learn to identify and relearn what your hunger and fullness cues and messages are. So that's kind of talking about how can we start to listen to our body once again. And this can take a lot of time. After years and years of ignoring these cues, how can we bring the attention back to them? So if you found that intuitive eating, hunger and fullness scale online, I say print it out and play with it. Be really curious about it. This is not a tool for judgment. It is not to say, if I get to 0, I'm bad and I've done something wrong, but rather okay, look, I got to 0 today. What was happening in the last hour or 2 that maybe could have alerted me that I was at a 2 or a 1?
Oh.
Yeah. So what are those specific cues that your body is sending you when you are starting to get hungry or when you are starting to get full?
Do you think people typically are on the extreme ends if they're not paying attention?
Absolutely. I would say 100%.
Because your body's maybe sending you subtle messages, but you're not paying attention until it's like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Or I'm really full.
And the thing with this, there's a lot to be said on hunger and fullness. I feel like we could just talk for a whole hour on hunger and fullness. But diet culture tells us that if it's not the right time, or if you haven't worked out, or if you ate too much for your previous meal, that you shouldn't be hungry until 6 p.m. when dinner is happening, or you shouldn't be hungry until the acceptable time for the next meal to happen. And so that kind of causes us to say, well, no, I can't be hungry now. I shouldn't be hungry. So we put off and push away those early cues of hunger until we get all the way to the 0, where your stomach is growling, you're thinking about food, maybe you're even salivating, you're getting pretty irritable, pretty angry. You could eat anything. And when we get to that 0, when we get to that over-hungry state, the likelihood that you are going to overeat to uncomfortable fullness is very high. And that's just physiological drive to eat, kind of primal hunger. Your body's like, we need food. We're gonna just bypass the rational thought and go right to getting as much food as we can. So some things that could be hunger for somebody might be a slight headache. It might be that they're having trouble concentrating on their work, or they're starting to think about food. That empty growling sense is a pretty far signal of hunger. There are things that happen before that.
So the growling, is that always hunger?
Not necessarily.
It could be digestion.
It could be digestion. And this is the thing, and the reason why it takes practice is there is a difference in the sensation of growling empty stomach hunger and bubbling digestion. There is a difference there.
Yes.
It may sound the same, like in a sound sense, the gurgle gurgle, but it doesn't feel the same. And so that's why it takes practice, and why I encourage you to print out this hunger and fullness scale and jot down what each level feels like for you. Because my hunger and fullness cues are going to be different from how you experience hunger and fullness. We're going to feel different things, so I can't give you my scale and say, here, go take this and use this as a rule. It's not a rule. It's not a tool for judgment. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It is something to practice, and it is information. That's how we take it. It's just information that we take to then make an informed decision.
And so we're not even talking at all about nutrition.
No.
Does nutrition come into play at some point?
Yes.
So the beginning phases, I see how this isn't a overnight process. The beginning phases are more awareness, education, tuning into your body and your hunger cues.
Yes, and the nutrition piece is, I think, why a lot of people come to the intuitive eating place, particularly from what I've seen about people reaching out to me, because I am a dietitian, so a lot of my view is on the food thing. But we don't talk about nutrition right off the bat. It is more towards the end, because if I start saying, oh, this is what healthy eating is, you should be having this much fiber per day and this much vegetables per day, people will turn that into a rule.
Okay.
And say, oh, I did not get 2 cups of broccoli today. You know what? Who cares? Whatever. I'm just going to eat the bag of chips. Or I was bad because I didn't get enough fiber today. It will turn into more of a rule rather than I'm making this decision to include vegetables because I know that it feels good in my body.
That sounds much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the nutrition piece does come into play, absolutely. But towards the end, once you've gone through some of the process of making peace with food, of neutralizing food, and identifying and working on some of that self-talk around good and bad and clean and healthy. We get rid of those labels in the intuitive eating world because food doesn't hold moral value. Foods aren't good or bad. Yes, maybe if you had, even with broccoli, good example, if you ate 18 cups of broccoli in a day, it would probably be bad for you.
Yes, yeah.
But it is considered a good, healthy food.
Right.
So in my world and in the intuitive eating world, all foods fit. All food has a place on your plate. It is really coming back to making a decision of what do I want to eat and how will it make my body feel? And then how can you honor that and make the decision that way?
If people want to learn more, they want to find out more about intuitive eating, or they'd like to work with you in particular, how can they find you?
So a great place to start just off the bat generally is the Intuitive Eating book by Elise Resch and Evelyn Tribole. They are the 2 dietitians that developed intuitive eating.
Okay.
And so that book goes into quite a lot more detail. It's a wonderful place to start. And to work with me in a one-on-one capacity, my business name is Embracing Intuition, and people can find me on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.